Today I'm going to show you my workflow from getting into DaVinci Resolve, then bringing footage into After Effects, and then back into DaVinci Resolve. Long story short, this is an episode from my course on DaVinci Resolve. So without further ado, why don't we just go into the course and watch that together. Or you're going to watch it. All right, let's go. In this lesson, I'm going to show you my workflow from going to DaVinci Resolve into Adobe After Effects. Now, if you don't use After Effects, you don't have After Effects, you can basically skip this session, but I do recommend sticking around. And the reason why is this workflow still applies to understanding how you would do something a little bit more advanced for your video work. So let's say I have this clip and I want to bring it over into After Effects. What I would do is I would select it and I would hold Alt on my keyboard and drag upwards, and that's going to create a duplicate. And you always work non-destructively. So I don't want to change the timing of this clip. I just want to deal with this footage right here. Now, it is often a good practice to also render out with some handles, and you need to choose a number that is relatively cohesive and consistent across all of your projects. So you have this clip dragged out, and I want to add some video handles, which are basically extra footage on either side just in case. So on average, a good number of frames to export for your video handles is about 1 second or 24 frames. So if we drag this out till we get the little -1 right there, and then what we're going to do is do the same thing on the other side. Let's add our frames, get down to the 1 second. We can right click on this footage, and then we can go to render in place. Now, unfortunately, some of the formats, the codecs inside DaVinci won't work in After Effects, so I will just use uncompressed most of the time, and I will make sure I export this as either RGB 10-bit or YUV 422 10-bit, and that's going to save as much information as possible. If you're doing this workflow, it will take a little bit extra video space, so you just have to be conscious of that. And we could also just add our frame handles in here, but I like to do it manually just because I know. We can select whether we're going to include our video color grading effects or anything on top of it, or we can just unselect that and we can just get the raw clip as is. But I'm going to just render this. Now it's going to ask us where do we want to save this. So I'm going to go to my tutorial folder where I have all this stuff getting saved. We can just put this, we'll put it in the Chapter 3 course content. I know we're in Chapter 5. I have a pre-renders folder, and I will save this in my DaVinci renders folder right here. I will select folder and let it render out. So now I'm going to jump over into After Effects, and I'm just going to show you my basic motion graphics template that I have. And the reason why we're doing this is now what I can do is I can navigate to that piece of footage that I just rendered out from DaVinci, and then I can bring that into After Effects. Now the easiest and fastest way to do this is select the thing that you just rendered in your sequence. Let's go to Find in Media Pool, and we're going to find that clip right there. We'll make a new bin under Master, and we'll call this DVR Renders, DaVinci Resolve Renders. Find that clip, drag it in here, and then we can right-click on this clip and open File Location, and you will find a window pop up on your computer that says, hey, here's that clip. Now I can go into After Effects and drag this clip in just like so. Footage, where is it? Right there. Footage, pre-renders, sure. So now what I can do is I can go to this clip and I can make a new composition by dragging it over the little new comp window right here. And I know that I did those 24 frame handles, and it looks identical to what we had in DaVinci Resolve over there. So all I need to do is go forward 24 frames. So I know I can go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is not going to be an After Effects course, so I'm not going to show you all of my keyboard shortcuts, but I'm going to make a marker right there so I know where my in point is. I'll jump to the very end and go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And make my marker. So this is going to be my main working area of this clip. And then I can do anything I need to do in After Effects, such as adding text or adding type. Now I'm going to jump over to another thing that I do want to show you, and that is my motion graphics title card. Let's see, where is it? motion drags, transition, mogurt right here. So if you've seen my channel at all, you'll have seen this transition. I use it to cut between some stuff. You've probably seen it throughout this course at some point. And the way I render this out is it's not from After Effects into DaVinci. It is an MOV file that I rendered from After Effects into DaVinci. So we're not doing anything like linking the footage or linking the project files. We have to think about things a little bit more traditionally, and I need to render out this piece of footage or this little transition into DaVinci in a friendly way. And the way you would do that is first do your animation and make sure that if you're doing a little transition like this, that your background is transparent. You can see this with the checkerboard right here. And I would have to render this out. So I would hit the M key on my keyboard, and then we could select and get rid of all the other renders so we can just look at the one thing, and the output module is the most important thing. So we can select our output module, and we have to make sure that we are rendering out with the correct channels. And these RGB channels will basically give us the ability to also render out in alpha. But unfortunately, with this high quality mode, we don't have the RGB plus alpha, and we need to make sure that this black screen isn't black. It's invisible when we import it into DaVinci. So I have to go to my format options over here, and I need to set this to another codec that supports an alpha channel. I'll often recommend just setting it to animation. That's fine. You could also use Apple ProRes 444. Some of these footage and files will get pretty large, so it's important to be conscious of that. But once I set it to animation and I set the channels, I can now select RGB plus alpha. Another thing that's super important is to output into the correct color space. So in DaVinci Resolve, if I jump over here and I select my little cogwheel and when we go to color manage, we can see that we're outputting in Rec 709, which is the default. Now, if we jump back into After Effects, we also have to make sure that our color tab matches. Now, we could either go to the output module and go to our color space. And right now we can see that the output color space is just the working space. It's kind of using the default in After Effects. But the difference is that we need to make sure that they match. So what you can do to check that is click on this 32BPC, and this 32BPC will open up our color settings. And right now we're just using the simple default stuff, and our working color space is actually not set for this project file. On average, for most After Effects files, it will probably end up being either sRGB or Rec 709. So I'm just going to make sure that this is set to Rec 709. Click OK. Now, when you do that, you also need to double check your footage and make sure that everything matches and everything looks the way it does, because you're doing more complex color things. But all we're trying to do is say DaVinci Resolve and Adobe After Effects, make sure you're working with the same color palette. So we can go back to that 32BPC, Rec 709, then we can go back to our render settings by hitting Control M. I realized I made a duplicate by hitting the Control M, so we can just go to the main one we were playing with, go to High Quality, Color, Working Space, Rec 709, just like that. Or if you need to render out to anything else, you could set that. But I'm going to set that here, leave that as is. Go to my output, set this to where I want this to be. So let's just go into where I am saving all of this stuff. We'll go into the course content folder, pre-renders. Now, previously I rendered out a DaVinci renders folder. Instead, we're going to go to AE renders, and we're just going to name it whatever we want. Naming it right there is fine. So the workflow is render out to DaVinci and then render back out to AE renders and import into DaVinci. So with all that done, we can hit the render button and render out this little transition. That's all done. And then we can go into our DaVinci folder. We can go to the file that we just rendered out. Let's go to AE renders, and I have this clip. Let's just drag this into my content over here. We'll make a new bin called AE renders, and we'll just drag this where it belongs. So now we can drag this on top where it belongs right there. What's happening? Oh, I made a boo-boo. We can hit Control M, and I realized I accidentally made a little mistake by hitting Control M again, so I'm just going to reset that, go back into the one that we were working on earlier. Now I have to make sure I do my double check, make sure that I go to my format options. We're rendering an animation just like that. We need to go to our channels, RGB plus alpha, go to color, make sure that we're rendering the correct working space between DaVinci and After Effects, and then we can click OK. And after we set up our QuickTime stuff over here, we need to make sure that we set an output. I have one here already set by default, but we can just make sure that we have a folder. So previously we rendered out our DaVinci footage into this DaVinci renders. I have another folder here called AE renders, After Effects renders. We'll put this in the folder that it belongs, just like that. Everything should be set. Now we can hit the render button and it's going to do its thing. Let it render out. Might take some time, but that only finished in a couple seconds because it's only about 24 frames. With our work done in After Effects now, we can switch over to DaVinci Resolve again. So bam, back into DaVinci, go to our AE folders right here, pre-renders, AE renders, just like that. Now I did take a second and make a new folder called AE renders in DaVinci Resolve, and I can just drag that into the correct folder, and then I can take this clip, drag it on top, and now I have this footage in my DaVinci Resolve project, and I have my little transition between those shots. So the workflow is basically, let's make our clip, let's figure out where our motion graphics belong, render that out, spit it in After Effects, do our thing, and then come back to DaVinci. It's almost the same thing as if you were to do it in Fusion, but the reason why I do some of this stuff in After Effects as opposed to DaVinci Resolve or Fusion is because when I'm dealing with a lot of extra keyframes and stuff or more complicated shape layer animations, I found that it's a lot easier for me to work in layers than it is with the nodes that you might see in the Fusion page here. Granted, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, and it's always worth asking, is this motion graphics going to enhance the work or make it worse? And sometimes less is more, so you can choose how you do your motion graphics, but I prefer the After Effects method for more advanced things, and for simple things like text animating on screen, you can very well use some of the basic tools in the titles section and maybe some Fusion nodes. But remember, keep it simple, less is more. Hope you enjoyed this lecture from my DaVinci Resolve course. Obviously, you are watching a bit of an ad, but I hope this information was useful to you, and if it was, let me know in the comment section down below if you hopefully learned something, or if there's something about video editing, content creation that you are confused about, I'd be happy to share. And I will say, I do have a DaVinci Resolve course. You can find links in the description down below if you want to experience that. With all that out of the way, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will leave you with the final tip. Eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and you'll make some gains. Goodbye, my friends. Bye.